Okay, I'm David R. Gillie. I'm running for Cache County Clerk, unaffiliated with any party. You will have two names on your ballots, Bryson Boehm and David R. Gillie for Cache County Clerk. The difference could not be more stark. I want you to think, though, in explaining how stark the difference is, I want you to understand what you vaguely understand. I want you to understand more specifically, more crystal clear. And that is the vast differences between real elections, which we conducted in this state for 150 years and in Western civilization for 2,500 years, and utterly pretend elections, which we currently conduct in this state. And all of us vaguely realize that, but until you've looked at the statutes, and it doesn't dawn on you how vast that difference is. Who's put together an IKEA couch or a bookshelf or a cabinet? You've done that? Okay. So when I was poor, I had Salvation Army furniture or I had IKEA furniture. And that lasted quite a few years until I finally earned a commission and started to earn a little bit better money. And all of us go through that stage. One lesson I learned in the days of assembling IKEA furniture is that no matter how precisely I follow a very detailed, specific step-by-step instruction for a couch, I will not get an armoire. No matter how precisely I follow the careful step-by-step instructions for a couch, when it's done, it will not be an armoire or a bookshelf. That's what we need to understand. Our current statute This is the current election statute of our state. It's 743 pages, 228,443 words. It is designed not to create a bookshelf or an armoire, but to create a couch. And a couch, in this analogy, is an utterly pretend election. That's what it is designed to produce. If you follow it with precision, you will have what Bryson Boehm, the current county clerk, calls a flawless election. It is a flawless pretend election. That's what it is designed to produce. This is a copy of Utahns' first election law. The provisional state of Deseret passed this 3.5-page election law in 1849. This is a copy of the first election law of the territory of Utah, which the Territorial Assembly passed a few years later. What they have in common is that they're both under 4 pages. When we finally gained statehood, the first state of Utah election law was also very short, very clear, very honest. They were designed to do something completely different. They were designed to give us a real election. And we did real elections in this state for 150 years. The two are utterly different because they're designed utterly differently to produce two utterly different things. Until you understand that, you really haven't grasped the depth of the problem that we're confronting. What's the difference, you ask me? Let me give you just about 7 or 8 of the primary differences between a real election and the pretend election that we now conduct. A real election is conducted under a very short, very clear, very understandable law that every citizen can understand. A pretend election is produced under a monstrosity that no citizen, and that's by design, can understand. A real election, and this is the foundation of real elections, is conducted by precincts. Who knows how many precincts are in this county? Somebody said it's 166 precincts. Why does it begin in a precinct? Because a precinct is a small number of neighbors, every one of whom knows several people there, and every one of whom is known by several people there. That's the foundation of real elections conducted by real citizens observing and standing responsible to each other for the integrity of something real. Pretend elections are held not by precinct, but by county or state. Also, real elections are regulated at the precinct level. The pretend elections that we conduct are regulated at the state level. Real elections are held in a precinct polling place that is pre-designated. Pretend elections that we currently conduct are conducted in your car, in your office, in your bedroom, in your mailbox, in a drop box, anywhere but under common view of the public in a precinct supervising what is happening. Real elections are conducted on one day, Election Day. Pretend elections are spread across several weeks. In real elections, every voter in a precinct can potentially challenge the qualifications under the Constitution of this state or whatever state to cast a ballot. Pretend elections, there is no means whereby voters can challenge each other's eligibility to even cast a vote for three primary reasons under our statute. First, they're conducted at the county level. That's 70,000 people that even if they wanted to, couldn't know each other. Second of all, by law, under our pretend election statute, essentially 40% of our fellow voters are anonymous to us, essentially anonymous, and that's by statute. Thirdly, it's very interesting, last March, it's just too big of a problem because it's done at the county level. Even with the best of will, it can't be done honestly. It can't be done properly because it's just too many people. Last March, I took the county clerk's, Bryson Bames county clerk's latest voter information, and I mailed out 300 mailers to the registered voters on that list. 100 of them came back as undeliverable, and some of them as much as several weeks later. I assume from that, I may be wrong, but my assumption from that is that the Post Service really made a diligent effort to find those, but could not. Give you another example. Several months ago, Several months ago, I took my name off the list for mail ballots, which you can do. You can't now, it's too close to election, but you can the day after the election. It said, I want to go to a real polling place, not receive a pretend mail-in ballot. Guess what? My wife and I just got mail-in ballots from the county. Again, even if you want to do it, it's too difficult at the county level. You've got to do it at the precinct level. Real elections are conducted under the purview of sworn election judges and a sworn election clerk who are specially sworn to that task and no other, and are prohibited by law from compromising their own position by being a current public servant or a candidate for a public office. Under pretend elections, the judges are not precinct judges. They're the county clerk, the county councilors, the lieutenant governor, and the governor, who are not specially sworn to the task and are compromised because they're allowed to be compromised by being current public servants or candidates for public servants. And you all see the glaring conflict of interest that's happening right now in the governor's race. Real election judges are constrained. Real election judges make every call from permission of this person to vote, from the casting of the ballot to the canvassing of the ballot to the counting of the ballots to the report. They're responsible for the finality of that, but they're constrained at every step by a specially sworn oath, by the presence of the precinct members watching what they're doing, by the potential for challenge from anyone there, and by the fact that they have to make a sworn report under penalty of perjury. Again, that's not the case under the pretend election law that we have now. Most of the challenges never happen, and if they do happen, they're resolved by a series of invisible public servants who are not under purview of their fellow citizens. In a real election, again, every step of the process is challengeable by the citizens in that precinct. In a pretend election, that's not the case. The final analysis, the real difference is, a real election, you and I stand witness to each other and guarantor to each other of the integrity of the process, that it is a duty that you and I owe to each other. In the pretend election that is our current statute, we instead of giving our fellow citizens what they deserve and what we owe them, we dishonor our fellow citizens by requiring them to accept, in lieu of real knowledge, from firsthand knowledge, the certification of their county councilors to the integrity of something that the law does not permit the county councilors to know at every step of the way. And the final step, of course, is the canvassing. You know that in a pretend election, we don't read the ballots and count them out loud and write them down with a pen. No, they're canvassed and counted by a computer in a private room to which only a handful of individuals are admitted. And it is against the law for those people in the room watching that to actually know the algorithm currently used by that computer. Does it multiply every Cox vote by 1.2 and divide every Lyman vote by 1.2? I don't know. You're not allowed to know. But the county councilors are required by law to certify what the law does not allow them to know. Switch, break, break. I'm going to speak of something completely different for a few minutes. I've already gone over my desired time. Who knows what a grammar request is? Raise your hand if you know what a grammar request is. Right now, this is front and center in the current election. The current governor and current lieutenant governor, by dint of SB 54, which is now part of our election statute, though it does violate the Constitution of Utah and of the United States, forced a primary on the Republican Party. And again, I'm not a Republican. Vote for me if you are. But I'm confessing here, I'm not a Republican. I'm running unaffiliated. I'm an American and a Utahn. Okay? But the governor, the current governor and lieutenant governor forced a primary on the Republican Party against its wills, against its bylaws under SB 54, and put themselves on the ballot by a number of signatures. Mr. Lyman has sued in court to get the information on what were the names and what were the constitutional qualifications to sign those petitions. And as yet, Mr. Lyman, have you received any of that information?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. We're still holding our breath, right? Well, it's the duty of the county clerk, when you want to know what any of your public servants are doing, it is the duty of the county clerk to help you file a grammar request to get that information. Now, there's a problem. Our current election statute, I alluded to, makes 40% of our fellow voters semi-anonymous to us, and the grammar statute, the two statutes together, do create some cover for the lieutenant governor and the governor in denying this essential information to every citizen in this state, but not complete cover. And the lieutenant governor is being disingenuous when she sends a letter in July to every county clerk saying, stiff-arm these grammar requests, there's no lawful basis. Well, there is, in fact. I'm sure Phil Lyman will tell you that part of his second amended complaint alleges, one, that the lieutenant governor and the governor in this response are, one, misreading both the election and the grammar statute, and two, that in other cases, they have correctly read them and have delivered to citizens who requested the information that they've requested. So in some cases, they've complied more closely with the law than in this current case when their personal political fortunes are concerned. Well, give me just 3 minutes more. I'm going to read to you something that I hope you learned in high school or college. If you didn't, shame, shame, shame. You should have. One of the most important court cases in the history of our country. The opinion was delivered by Chief Justice John Marshall, and the most famous, Marbury versus Madison, the most famous paragraph of that decision reads thusly: "It is emphatically the province and duty of the judicial department to say what the law is." Then he goes on for several paragraphs to explain why that's the case. I'm going to give you just a short answer. He says, "Those who apply the rule to particular cases must, of necessity, expound and interpret that rule. If two laws conflict with each other, the courts must decide on the operation of each." What Justice Marshall did not write, is that it is the exclusive province and duty of the judicial department to say what the law is. And if you read his arguments, you see that they apply precisely in an analogous way to every judicial officer of the United States and of the state, but also to every executive, judicial, and legislative officer of a state, because we're all duty bound by an oath to execute the law in accordance with our state and our federal constitution. It is, by analogy, and these are my words here, taking Justice Marshall's argument to the county clerk, it is emphatically the province and duty of the county clerk to say what the law is. A clerk who would properly apply the rule must of necessity expound and interpret the rule. If the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of Utah, the statutes of Utah, including the election statute and the grammar statute, and the rule and advice of the Lieutenant Governor of Utah conflict one with another, the clerk is bound by oath. Somebody read for me Article 6, Clause 3 of the Constitution of the United States, where we instructed that all judicial, executive, and legislative officers of the United States and of every state, right, are bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, right? Read Article 4, Section 10 of the Constitution of Utah. By both of those, the clerk is duty bound to mark out for him or herself the operation of the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of Utah, the grammar statute, the election statute, acknowledging and thanking the Lieutenant Governor for her advisement where it is helpful, but adopting it as a rule for his own conduct only insofar as it illuminates, and not at all where it obscures, his sworn duty to properly apply Constitution statute to the case at hand. So the question is, ask yourself, ask Mr. Bryson Bain, what are you doing to help citizens of this county right now who have requested information? Can you help me find out how Governor Cox and Governor Henderson are on the ballot? Purportedly, it's by petitions. Can you tell me who the signatories were, and were they qualified by the Constitution of this state to sign such petitions? Ask Mr. Bryson Bain what kind of help he's giving or planning to give to such citizens, and then know that were I your county clerk, and I'm not, so it's easy for me to say this, and I'll acknowledge that, were I your county clerk, and you were to come to me with such a request, I would see it as my duty to make a careful examination of the pertinent clauses of the Constitution of the United States, of Utah, and of the grammar statute of Utah and the election statute of Utah, and to see that you, the citizen, received all that the law requires. Okay? And law is hierarchical. Laws go from statutes to the Constitution of Utah to the Constitution of the United States. That which at a lower level does not conform to that which is higher falls away as unlawful. That's the basis of our Republican government. So want you to remember that. Remember the difference between real and pretend elections. Remember that it is my intent, if you will elect me county clerk, to execute with precision this monstrosity that is our current code right now, but to use the office as a bully pulpit to persuade you, my fellow citizens, to persuade the county council, to together persuade our legislature, and to abandon this monstrosity that by design creates utterly pretend elections, and to go back to something much closer to what we've done in the past for 150 years in this state. Very simple, understandable by all, creating real elections again, because it's what we owe each other as citizens. Know that I will do that faithfully. Know that I am, I may be modest, but I'm fearless. I have more than once in my naval career been asked to violate the law, and every time politely refused because I understood I was bound by an oath. I would do the same for you as your county clerk, and I will leave that. If you do not already have a David R. Gillie for Cache County Clerk sign in your yard, please do not leave today without taking one from the booth over there and planting it in your yard or your business. Thank you very much, and I welcome, please, thoughtful questions.